intervention peut-être en anglais, vu que vous avez tout ce qui est stratégie et développement du digital. Donc, ici, vous allez sûrement, vous êtes anglophone, parce qu'il y a le domaine de l'aide. When we speak of strategy, we often speak of the future. The classic definition of a strategy is the ability to foresee future consequences based on the initial initiatives. Foreseeing future consequences is two key words, meaning that having the ability to envision where you would like to be down the road. And so, for me, speaking of strategy and speaking of the digital, there are two important key elements. As I have clients in the United States, I have clients in Dubai. Most of our work, strategy work, most of our work is really strategy development. And then when we come to Tunisia, it's the other way around. It is as if we already have the ability to quickly adjust and don't think too much about strategy. What I have learned in my schooling and in my 25 years of business experience is that two things. It's actually just one thing. No strategy, no business. If you don't have a strategy, you don't really have a business. You're at the whim of the market. You don't have any control of what happens to you. What makes it even more difficult today is that we are in an era where things evolve so quickly and so fast. We went in the last 12 years, 13 years from a world connected to the internet to a world connected to a mobile internet, anytime, any place. To most recently, the Internet of Things, where basically commerce and objects were talking to us through machine learning. And then today we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about cloud computing, we're talking about robotics. Much of this evolution happening so fast, sort of counterintuitive to planning and strategizing. So there's sort of a dilemma, It's like strategizing is looking at the future 3 or 4 years down the road and planning according to that objective, yet things are happening so quickly. Sometimes the mistake that we make is that we make a strategy and we stick to it. The ecosystem that we live in changes so quickly that we become unaware, because we become attached to that strategy. So part of the digital strategy today is having not only working backwards, as I said earlier, in the very definition of strategy is foreseeing the future. In other words, you cannot speak of strategy without having a vision already, envisioning what the world looks like. The legendaries like Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates in the late 1980s and 90s envisioned already that world, and then they began working on it. So the initiatives of today had in mind not surviving today, but had in mind what it was like when every person could have in his pocket his mobile computer. And so they worked backwards. That vision requires that we focus on three main things: the processes, the people, and the technology. And I'm sure you've heard that today, that when we speak of digital technology, digital transformation, we're not necessarily speaking of technological transformation. Not necessarily. Technology is one of the essential pillars that you need to successfully reach your goals. It is not the primary one. It comes later. It is having the ability to see what business processes you want, what business outcomes that you want, what opportunities are out there in the marketplace. It is only then you can apply the how part. because you've defined the what. What is my market? Who is my client? What does my client want? What ecosystem does my company live in 3 to 4 to 5 years? Once you've defined that what, then it's the how. The how is the technology. Many of our clients make the mistake of saying, oh, we're already there. We've got a website, we've got a LinkedIn account, we've got social media, Twitter, Facebook. We're cool, we're all set. No, they're not. And many of them fail because they fail to link those 4 or 5 elements together so they can feed off of each other. Having that technology in silos, working independently, does not guarantee that tomorrow you will exist. And we don't have enough time, but I can cite you hundreds of companies with the best websites, the best e-commerce, the best social sites. They get thousands and thousands of clicks every day. They're not around. They have vanished because they have failed to put that to work together. So, the people, the process, the technology, and then the third leg of that stool is the people. Who is going to get me there? And that's a huge, huge, huge element. Nearly 50% of our work as a company focuses on that part because it seems that is the part that many CEOs forget. Who's going to get us there? So, in recap, I just want to now delve a little bit more in detail what I mean. I want to tell you a quick story, and from this story, we will look at the 3 points that I just spoke about. About 6 months ago, I was in Los Angeles with my son, who is a musician. We walked into a guitar store, and someone says, "Oh, hello, Jamal." My son's name is Jamal. "How's it going?" "Hey," he goes, I recognize you from somewhere. I was at a show a couple of weeks ago and I saw you. And so he goes, "Hold on 1 second." He disappeared for about 45 seconds, and this is a very expensive, I don't know if you've been to guitar stores, they're not cheap, they're very, very, especially for professional musicians. And I'm going, I put my hand on my wallet because I know somehow it's going to disappear. And so the guy comes back in about 40 seconds, and he says, "Here, try this." And he handed my son, out of a selection of about 150 labels of guitars, the one guitar that my son loves, a Fender. And we both looked at each other like, he goes, "Try this." And it's these, it's very technical musical, I don't understand, it's the 6th string, it's this, it's that, and I'm going, "Oh yeah, that's, not to sound stupid," and I'm going, and I'm shaking my head. And then he disappears. And while he was gone, for no more than 15 seconds, someone else comes in, and she goes, "Mr. SAIBI, in Los Angeles, okay? The Festival de Carthage in Tunisia this summer. So-and-so is playing. Would you like some tickets?" I was taken back a little bit. And then that guy, the first guy that disappeared, comes back to my son and he goes, "Here, Jamal, you're going to be in upstate New York and Maryland and Baltimore and North Carolina the next 2 weeks. Here's some stubs for tickets for restaurants and for shows." All of this without having said a word to these people. That is digital technology transformation. That is digital at its best. That put me, the client, at the center of everything. So I want to ask you a question. What do you think happened 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10 years prior, when the chief of information officer of that company, plus the CEO of that company, plus the marketing director, plus the customer, they have what they call a people's manager, not a human resource manager. What do you think they decided as a strategy? They put it all together. Of course, if they left it only to the CEO is pretty much concerned with the business model and growth and competitive advantage. The marketing guy was probably more concerned about, how do we market these products? the people's manager, the human resource director, was concerned with his part. So if you ask each one of those individually, what is your digital strategy, each would have given you his or her own view of things. But what we saw here was an example of how all four of them were working together. It is putting a business process, the content, and in this case the content is the product, the channel with which they put this to work, the technology that they have. They have analytics. They have cookies, and browsers that follow what not cookies, that follow what people's behavior is and what they like and don't like. They figured since I was my son's father, they easily looked at the link and realized that I live in Tunisia. And in Tunis, and since I'm there at a musical store, they immediately, through a click of a button, saw what events are happening. That, my friends, was a perfect example of putting it all together to work. So strategizing isn't necessarily having those few elements separately working hard, but not together. It is also not just left at the whim of a person, one person who decides it all. Everyone decides. But most importantly, what really impressed me more than anything else was the capacity of the people that work in there. I saw no chief marketing officer. I saw no CEO. I saw no chief financial officer. I saw a team willing and able to deliver. They all understood. And these were the people that I am sure when they were hired a year before were sat down and told, here's our strategy, and here's what we want to see, and here's the role that you have to play, and here's how you benefit from it. It wasn't piped into their head. They weren't told, this is what you have to execute. It was all explained to them, and they saw their role in it. And by seeing their role in it, it invigorated them and it empowered them. And it made them own the process. And that's the third part. Processes, people, and technology. Mistakes that are made oftentimes are in linking all three together, or focusing on one element and forgetting the others. So, just to recap, I'm not sure how much time I have, but just to recap, you can't, without a strategy, you have no business. And it's counterintuitive, and I say this as a proud Tunisian, we don't often, many of us, even in the biggest companies today, we don't often strategize. And we're not very good strategists because much of our culture, much of our training, and what I mean by training, I mean the training that takes place before we're 5 or 6 years old. The real training that I believe shapes our life, doesn't push us in the direction of planning and studying which way to go and the risks involved with that. And today, we're at a crossroads of that. This is more important for Tunisian companies than any other. And I've talked about this topic in Asia, in America, in Europe. But I stress, when I come to Tunisia, I stress one part, the cultural part. We in Tunisia are going to be going through a very difficult period the next 5 years. It is what I call the changing of the guards. But in the next 5 years, we're going to have a sort of a friction, sort of an unannounced battle. An unannounced battle between the newest generation that's coming into the marketplace and the older generation that's about to retire. And I'm seeing that today as I work with many, many companies, especially family-oriented ones or family-owned ones, and even classic private companies. And you got someone 45, 50, 60 years old and willing to adopt new ways of doing things. I don't want to say to adopt new technologies, because many of them have some, social media accounts, but can't see the benefit of putting all of that together. I today, standing here in front of you, in my company today, in my office, I have 3 people, the oldest of which is 24 years old. I learn from them. They work with me, and they are my teachers, even though I don't miss much in terms of digital transformation. even though that I believe I consider myself one of the most knowledgeable people when it comes to that, I constantly learn from that. So that's another obstacle that we run into, and that is sort of unique to us in this part of the world. So if I were to stress anything, and I want you to go away with one idea in mind, and that is digital transformation is not technological transformation. That's only one of the three pillars. The other two are your people and your business processes, your business model. Do you want to be competitive or not? Who are your competitors? Who is your client? What does your client want? What channels to put to interact with that client? And in that technology today, we have the capacity, very inexpensively, to analyze data very quickly. And there is no reason today, there is absolutely no reason today that a company opens up today for business and not have those things at work. Because between open source, knowledge that you acquire from universities, applications that are available online for free, there is no reason that any company should open today and expect to be in business in 2 to 3 years and not have the capacity to leverage all of that and put it together. The survival of your company is at stake. There are experts who can help you with this. And it's not a question of money. You know, if you fail to plan for what's going to happen 2 to 3 years from now, you will have planned to fail. And that's inevitable. But I know I can see here that I've got your attention. And it's important. It's not a question of money. It's like in politics today, it's a question of azima. It's a question of courage. It's a question of saying, you know what I've known and what got me here today is not what's going to get me for the next 5 to 10 years. A change is difficult, but this is a necessary change. I thank you very much.